One of the changes is in offside.
Yep.
And I think that is the one that I think frustrates supporters more than anything when they see the lines coming out and how tight it is and people are getting given offside for an armpit or, you know, a toenail, these type of things. There's going to be a change in that. Can you explain it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. One of the clubs talking to them last summer went, actually, technology has introduced a problem that technology isn't yet capable of solving, because all it's done is make really marginal offsides that we as referees, you as fans, don't like. So one of the benefits we have next season is that we've now reintroduced effectively the benefit of the doubt to the attacking player. So where you have those really close offside situations, we'll carry on with the same process. We'll draw the 1 pixel line on the defending player, the 1 pixel line on the attacking player. We then overlay the slightly broader lines that we use for broadcast, and where they cross, will now be deemed as onside.
We're getting level back. What we used to deem as level before VAR.
And if you look at it, we'd probably get 20 goals back that we would have disallowed last season. And I think that's a really good thing for football.
And if you remember back 2 or 3 years before we had VAR, you know, probably you yourself as well on Monday Night Football, you would draw a line and say, well, somebody's toe's offside, how's the assistant referee missed that? But in the last couple of seasons, nobody likes that being done now. And so you're still moving the margin. There's always going to be a margin of in an offside situation, but that margin is, and the benefit of the doubt, is certainly going back more towards the attacking team this season.
The other one about offsides that caused a bit of frustration, particularly with players last year, was where we kept the flag down to create the VAR window, as they call it. And there were certain situations where the player was clearly 5 metres offside, or the ball went out wide, and there wasn't a clear and obvious attack. Those now we're encouraging the assistant referees to flag. So you'll have far fewer passages of play that people get frustrated about when we then come back and give the offside.
One of the other changes we're going to see this season, I think everyone's been calling for, is almost a change in the handball rule in terms of scoring a goal. Now, it can only be the goal scorer who can be penalised rather than the guy who assists the goal scorer in terms of it to the arm. I mean, there was an incident last season at Anfield with Callum Wilson where it just hits him, a ricochet, and then he puts it in. For me, I'd like to see that as a goal, but that this season is a change in that it's just the guy who scores the goal will be penalised for handball.
Yeah, so the Callum Wilson one in particular, whilst he does take that extra touch, it's him who scores the goal, it's his hand who would hit or arm who would hit, and immediately afterwards the ball goes into the goal after he puts it in. So that will still be a handball. It's a difficult situation to get to where everybody's happy with it. I think there's an understanding or a feeling in football that if the person who handles the ball then immediately scores, that can't be right. So whilst there is a change, the Wilson one at Anfield, as a Newcastle fan, the Wilson one at Anfield will still unfortunately be handball.
But one of the ones that we didn't like was if it forces the player who then passes it to a teammate who scores. Last season that was disallowed, but IFAB have listened to that, not just from us, from other people as well, and that will now be a goal next season. I think that's a positive step.
I think what everyone needs to remember is football is a contact sport. So in recent times, all areas of the game have been focusing on, if there's contact, that automatically means it's a foul. And that's not the case. The process for us on field is all about us still making a positive decision on the field.
So you're talking about the threshold for contact and for a penalty is going to be a lot higher?
Yeah, of course it is. And so every small bit of contact doesn't necessarily make somebody fall over 2 steps later. There
was an example last season of something where there was very little contact. I think it was Richarlison on Ceballos, Everton v Arsenal at the Emirates, and the referee gave the decision really quickly. Yeah. If that situation happens, would you still want VAR to get involved and say, actually, no, that's not a penalty, or the referee deems that a penalty? Because when we're talking about contact, it is still subjective, isn't it?
The referee on the pitch, we're encouraging on that type of offence to keep out of it. Yes, you can't, when you look at the footage, you can't deny there is a small element of contact. So, yeah, you've got contact. Is it forceful? Is it strong contact? No, it's not. Does that contact have a consequence? Does it cause Ceballos to go down? No. Or is he actually going, I've got that contact, I've got an opportunity to go over? And actually on the pitch, we think better off not to penalise it.
A situation I remember last season of Phil Foden where he actually gets taken out by a goalkeeper and he's trying to stay on his feet and he doesn't get the penalty. And there's almost this feeling that I think even yourselves were quite open about, unless a player went down, it was difficult to give a penalty. Is there a change in that?
There's not a change. I think we reflected on the Foden incident as a group of referees and agreed that it should have been a penalty. I think we're very clear, we try to be very clear, you don't need to go to ground to win a penalty, but the players who are willing to stay on their feet doesn't necessarily mean that they won't get a penalty. So the Foden situation for sure, he goes down, he gets immediately back up, but having reflected upon that ourselves, we know that should be an intervention from the VAR, it should be a penalty on the field. And we're very keen that the players are aware that you don't need to go down, you don't need to exaggerate the contact. If the contact is there, then we'll find that.
What are you hoping for in the coming season in terms of the new change with VAR? Do you think supporters and players will embrace this a lot more? Because as I said, they've recommended what they do and don't like with their VAR.
Yeah, no, I do. I think it moves us more back to the Premier League football that we know and love, with physical contact, free-flowing game, competitive and compelling football. And I think that's a good thing for the game, and I think it's a good thing for referees as well. But what I hope for is an understanding that in doing that, there's always going to be subjectivity. We're still going to be debating things. But I think we're better debating having an understanding of a higher threshold, higher level for intervention for VAR, because that produces a more fast-flowing, free-flowing game of football, and that's what we really want.